All right. Well, we'll start it quite easily and just get your general opinions on what's going to be the new normal post-COVID in your view.
Well, okay, let me start. I think we can all agree that COVID-19 has changed our normal way of working abruptly. From one day to another, we were locked up in our homes, and companies had to find a quick and fast response to basically keep the work process flowing. So the discussion of the flexible workspace itself is not really something new, right? Topics like pollution, finding solutions for traffic issues, and certainly not to forget finding a balance between work and family life, has been on the radar before. I just think that COVID has speeded up this process of working more from home, and you could almost say that COVID enforced and speeded up the decision-making process for all of us. In a few weeks' time, communication systems and digital workflows were put in place that would have taken us normally, 5 to 10 years down the line. So for me, the new normal will be that people will continue to commute better between their home office and the office itself. So they will continue to find a better balance and spend more time in their home office than, of course, they did in the past. But as a result of that, I think that companies will rethink the layout of their office spaces, and they will accommodate now this new way of working. And that means to me, companies will invest in home offices. They will spend actually money in making sure that people can work comfortably from within their home office itself, whether it's UC, desk spaces, and so on. At the same time, companies will reduce the amount of rented and owned office space. They will reduce the amount of desks they have, and they will have to make sure these desks are more separated from each other and so on. And of course, because of that, they will have to create more co-working spaces rather than meeting spaces, where people basically, work more, collaborate more efficiently with their co-workers. So all of this will have certain challenges. If the amount of desks will reduce, and how do you find yourself a desk when you go to the office, and how you find your coworkers and all that. So there's a lot of challenge that will come with it. But in the very end, I think COVID for me has just speeded up a process that already started years ago.
We're facing potentially quite a radical readjustment in not just office space, but also what we think of as a home working area as well. I mean, which is going to come first? I mean, how radical is it going to be in the office workspace?
I think this COVID-19 definitely accelerated, very similar to what Stephen just been discussing, and it's accelerated things more than ever. I think we're getting a new generation of people into the workplace. They're younger, they're more used to having their device on them all the time. They're used to having video communications all the time. They're used to doing all their social media 24/7. This generation's on it 24/7. There's no such thing as a normal office hours anymore. So going forward, how is the business place going to adjust to that? Yes, we've got congestion issues. Yes, we've got environmental issues. These all come into play. So the new generation is looking at now how are they going to effectively work going forward. And this certainly has accelerated the way we're going to change our workings together and collaboration. So I don't think office spaces will actually disappear, but their function will change. The office space will become a place where people collaborate and engage and do team building and cement relationships while when the actual work is done from the home office. So that's exactly the place where we are going to take real advantage of, because technology is at the forefront of driving this change and accommodating this change. So that's the real exciting bit from what's on the horizon.
The difficulty I have is knowing what companies are going to be thinking of doing just generally in the space, and whether that's going to be something that supports collaboration or not. I can see a lot of hot desking coming out and a reduction of spaces to allow workers to go back working under the current conditions. Whether that is conducive to collaboration or whether proper design is going to go on is quite another. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I think it's challenging, and again, this is not new. So a lot of facility managers and people have been, overthinking this. So you see a fast rollout of UC tools, whether it's Teams or Zoom or all of these. I mean, I hear my kids talking about Zoom meetings suddenly where, 6 months ago, they've never heard of Zoom. So people are learning fast on how to use platforms to communicate with each other. Communicating is not the same as collaborating. I still think that Teams and Zoom and that kind of platforms are still not engaging enough. It is an advanced audio video tool, but not a collaboration tool. The missing part is still, how can I have a software layer that allows me to work together simultaneously in common workspaces? These tools exist. We're using Hoilu to do this because this is a perfect platform that ties into Teams and Zoom. So while you're in your audio video call, you still can work together in the same workspace, whether it's annotation, whether it is ideation, scrumming. People need to collect all that data, and they also need to see an evolution of their work. Started here, and how is my project? Who has contributed what to my project, and how is what is the evolution of my project? How do I get to an end result? This is not something you can just purely do on audio video communication tools. So what we see, and this is something that companies will have invest more and more, is advanced collaboration tools that plug into unified communication. Fortune 500 companies today already have deployed that because they already had a need for that. They had people all over the world that needed to communicate and collaborate on design level, on product, the design level and stuff. So these tools have been deployed, have been developed. The only problem is that the smaller and the medium companies have never had the need to use these kind of things because they're all sitting together in an office. So now suddenly these tools are becoming available and are getting on the radar of the smaller and medium-sized companies too, because workers will have to work between the office and remote working.
I mean, people have had communications for ages. I mean, there are a collection and a whole generation of mobile workers have been working remotely and productively for a very long time. Now, of course, we're bringing in more members of the company that is not used to working remotely and collaborative in the sense that a mobile workforce has been doing for donkey's years. Does that bring lots of cultural issues into play here as well as the technology?
It's definitely a cultural change more than ever, and we're matching different generations in every workspace. But this has forced us to work in a different way. So being in 2.5 months working from a home office, we've all come to the conclusion that you can still effectively run your business, manage your team, communicate with customers. I do see a big change in attitude of different individuals. Some people don't have a problem having video turned on, but other people, I often have to request, please turn your video on, because I like to engage. I like to see their expressions on their face. I've done multiple interviews for new staff to join us in the last few months, and I insist it has to be via video. I will not take a telephone call because you can see how the expressions are, what the dynamics are of that individual. You can see if they're engaged. And it's very funny. I do see a big gap between certain individuals who really have no problem turning their video on and engaging, and others, they don't want to turn on their video and they just want to do audio. Well, sure, it works it's not the same. We're humans. We pick up a lot more information from subconsciously almost from people looking at their expressions on their face than just communicating. And alluding to what Steve said, it's exactly correct. The dynamics are all dependent now on what layers of tools are available so that we can effectively communicate. Because in a meeting room, you go to a whiteboard and you're sharing ideas, or whether it's an interactive whiteboard or whatever, and then you send an email to all. But how do you bring that meeting room experience, that collaborative meeting experience, combine it with a home office and a workplace office or workplace meeting collaboration space? And that's right now what's the what gap we need to fill.
It's interesting, isn't it, Steve, that we're still trying to make the basic communications work reliably, but if you're going to encourage exactly the points you raised, Robin, then you need a much richer, not just technically functional, but a richer environment to actually get the most out of people communicating, as we do on so many different levels.
I agree. I mean, there has to be, there's a couple of things that need to change, or that need to speed up, I would say. First is what I call the bring your own device. I think, everybody's familiar with that terminology. People that have their own devices need to be able to work anywhere at any time on their own devices, but still bring it into a corporate environment. So that step will brings the necessity of having software tools that can plug into every single operating system. So this is already a key thing that is becoming a must, where before it was a nice to have. My software is running on iOS, or it's running on Office, or on Linux or Android. Now it's not anymore. The software needs to be running on every single platform. That's key. Secondly, all these tools that are specified or specifically developed for advanced collaboration, for example, they need to have open APIs that plug into your UC environment, whether it's Zoom or Team, or it has to be a fluid, common experience. So all of this enforces software developers to create more open, standardized tools. So this is an extra dimension that comes with this, remote working. All things that have started a long time will now become necessity.
And the key thing here is whether this is the first time we really put AV technology and communications technology up to real scrutiny, isn't it? And we've found that certainly at local broadband level, it's wanting hugely, although companies are responding very quickly. But how robust is technology going to have to be, and what are the next steps up for the technology to deliver what we need? I mean, infrastructure needs a good kick up the backside, doesn't it? Really, it's really not delivering as robust as we'd like.
Well, so to be honest, I'm not that worried about networks in the companies or the company infrastructure itself. I think it's a very mature business for many years. IT has been working very professionally and developing very strong networks and creating enough bandwidth for people working within an office environment. So within the corporate environment itself, and now for sure as people start working remotely, the bandwidth within the corporate network is less of a problem. The problem now shifts to the public network. So there's two different things that happen at this moment. First of all, the public network, specifically in remote areas, is not designed for having a lot of people working simultaneously at home, taking up a lot of bandwidth. So we see everywhere a lot of dropouts during video calls. So this is something that the governments and the public infrastructure will have to address. Another thing what we see is that a lot of corporate businesses now start calling their provider and ask for an upgrade on their up and down link towards their corporate network. So it's not so much the corporate network itself I'm worried about, it's about the up and down link to the corporate network and the public infrastructure that needs a lot of development.
Do we need some security upgrades as well? I mean, how secure is everybody in this new environment?
To be honest, if you've heard things like, security breaches like Zoom had and so on over the last couple of weeks, I think the more people go public, the more vulnerable people get and data becomes more vulnerable. So is there a necessity to upgrade security regulations? Absolutely. You know, the whole discussion's going on now also with what was it there? The 5 gig networks, right? And the way that people can spy on data. And yes, I mean, data and data security is becoming the most problematic thing out there. It's been actually there for a long time, but now a lot of corporate information is passing over this public network more and more, you know. So yes, data security is extremely important now, more than ever.
Robin, what would you say AV's major role is in this new sort of working environment? Is it in the infrastructure, the communications, the interfacing? What sort of unique AV quality can we bestow upon this newer working world? I mean, you know, I think someone said the other day that AV is like electricity in a company. It's an essential service that now people are realizing just how important it is for almost like the lifeblood of their company. First of all, is that something people are going to think of more strategically and seriously and evaluate more intensely? And secondly, what sort of functions is AV going to be able to deliver to the new type of working we're facing?
I think the answer is very simple. It's a very open to discussion, of course, everybody's interpretation. But I've always seen AV as the glue, right? The glue that cements things together. And we've always said that you know the technologies that we sell, it just brings everything together. So it's the glue. Where we see the challenge is that, you know, you got people using different software tools, different platforms, different operating systems, and the big thing that the AV can bring to the experience is that it can be used on one common platform. So that's going to be the real excitement. So you can bring your own device to the meeting space, and it doesn't matter what brand it is, what operating system. That's the big challenge that we have now. When you're speaking from one software to another via a communication software, they have to be the same one. You have to install the same software as I have, and we got to communicate. And that's where I think the AV team or the AV side of the business can really be an instrumental part. So it can allow the different communication software platforms to communicate with each other, and different hardware to work together. And that's really the excitement that I feel that the role of AV can be that glue in for the business.
Steve, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. You know, it's about standardizing, coming to common standards between the different AV manufacturers and software developers. That's going to be the key. Instead of everybody doing it on his own and and trying to enforce his own little thing out there. Yes, there will be a very big need for standardization, but at the same time, I mean, you know, we all also know that it's a dream, right? It's going to be something that will take time over and years. So, but that again then will create the opportunity for other companies to create that cross-compatibility software. So, you know, when we talk about, and this is something we do every day. Now we're in a Zoom call. In 10 minutes time, I will have a Teams call, and then it will be a WebEx call, and it will be a Google Hangouts call. It's all fun until you have to call from one platform into another. And then suddenly it becomes a nightmare. So this is what I'm trying to explain here. We need to find a way that even though you can still connect to a common platform, or you select a common platform for your company, whether it's purely for collaboration or whether it's for AV communication, they still need to be able to communicate and tie in with each other. Otherwise, it will never work.
Out of looking back onto my, let's say, the last 25 years in AV, I've seen a dramatic evolution, and I'm speaking now from the actual user, not the integrator, but the user. The user 25 years ago, it was really from, okay, they had so many different remotes in that space to turn on the slide projector, to lower the projection screen, turn on the projector. They had like 3 or 4, 5 different interfaces. The success of AV was to actually get rid of those actual physical interfaces, right? The 5 remotes that they had to control all these devices and bundle it all into one. So they were already 25 years ago acting as the glue to pull all these different things together and create a simple, easy to use interface, push a button and there all the magic happens, right? Well, now propel yourself forward to today. That's where we need to play the exact same role, but we're doing it in terms of software. We're using the hardware to bridge the software together. And that's truly the opportunity that we as an industry have, because the IT industry, it's all software driven. We all know that. And the AV business is predominantly hardware driven. So marry those two together, and I think you have a recipe for a great success. So I think this is really the vision and the future that we're looking at. We're going to tie this all together in our experience centers. And of course, under the COVID-19 situation, the experience centers are not coming alive like we anticipated. It's delayed, like a lot of other projects are. And we're going to create an online experience. So we'll walk you through that, an online version of it. So you'll be walked through this. And that's where we're bringing this whole vision together. And that's why we firmly believe that we've got the software tools and the hardware to make this really work. And that's basically the vision behind what we're trying to achieve here.